Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AP Chemistry Exam 2025, specifically free response question number 2. This one has it all. It's got a little bit of empirical formulas, it's got titrations, buffers, kinetics, and even a quick question on intermolecular forces thrown in for good measure. So, buckle up for a wild ride, and let's get started. Free response question number 2 from the 2025 exam starts out with an empirical formula and moles type of question. So we're supposed to answer the following questions about ascorbic acid, which we are told is vitamin C. A student combusts a sample of ascorbic acid C something, H something, O something to determine its chemical composition. The only products of the reactions are 0.24 moles of CO2 and 2.883 grams of water. So we have to notice that they're different. Number 1, calculate the number of moles of water that is produced. And then number 2 will be to use the information that the mole ratio of carbon to oxygen is 1:1 in ascorbic acid. That's going to be an important piece of information. Based on this information and your answer to part A, determine the empirical formula of ascorbic acid. It should be noted that sometimes when you have multiple steps, A, B, and C, or 1 and 2 in this case, and you're not confident that you got your first part right, but you have to use it later on, just confidently use it later on. And even if you have an incorrect answer, but you use it properly in the next step, you should get credit for it. So let's check it out. All right. So you can see my final empirical formula down there, but let's see how we get there. First, in part 1, we're changing 2.833 grams of water into moles of water. So 1 mole over its molar mass, and you should get 0.1573 moles of water. Okay, great. Then, to do the mole ratio, or to do the empirical formula, for a compound, what you need to do is to get moles of all 3 elements, or all the elements in the compound, and then reduce the ratio. Divide them all by the smallest one to get the whole number ratio that's in lowest terms. So, we're told that there's 0.2400 moles of CO2. However, that's not the moles of just carbon. That's the CO2 that came from the burning of the carbon that was in this compound. So we have to do a little ratio here. And we have to say, all right, if there's that many moles of CO2, there must have been that many moles of carbon in 1:1 ratio. 1 carbon in every CO2, so that's 0.2400 moles of carbon. Great. That's also equal to the number of moles of oxygen because they tell us it's a 1:1 ratio. So we got to include that. Then I have to do a similar thing for this moles of water that I found. But the ratio is different though, because each water contains 2 hydrogens, not just 1. And so that many moles of water, in every 1 mole of water, there are 2 moles of hydrogen. So a total number of moles of hydrogen is 0.3146, is what my calculator gave me. And so my formula now is C this, H this, O this. Now those are ugly numbers. We don't like them very much. So we divide them all by the smallest one, 0.24. And this becomes then a 1, this becomes a 1, and this becomes a 1.3 something. Depending on how you rounded your molar mass, you might get something a little bit different than mine. But I recognize that as being about 1 1/3. So if I multiply all of these 3 numbers by 3, keep them in the same ratio, but get whole numbers out of them, I get C3H4O3 as the empirical formula for ascorbic acid. All right, so we went old school on the empirical formula, and now we're swinging over into the land of titrations and buffers. So let's check it out. Part B. Ascorbic acid acts as a weak acid as shown in the equation, and the equation tells me that it's a monoprotic acid. That's important for the next calculation. The following titration curve was produced when 10 milliliters of ascorbic acid was titrated using a 0.055 molar NaOH solution. Okay. Calculate the molar concentration of the ascorbic acid solution. All right, so this is going to be a titration question. And we have an amount and a volume of we don't have the volume quite yet, of sodium hydroxide, and we want to know the molar concentration of the ascorbic acid in this 10 milliliters. So to me, that signals a 3-step stoichiometry calculation. Notice, and it goes something like this. Yours might look a little bit different, but hopefully we got the same answers. I noticed from the titration curve, the equivalence point is right here at 16 milliliters. So that's going to be my starting amount. 16 milliliters of sodium hydroxide was used, or 0.016 liters of sodium hydroxide. And then when you're doing titration calculations, it's like three-step stoichiometry. Change it into moles, do the mole ratio to predict the other thing, and then come back to whatever it is you need in the third step. So volume times molarity gives me moles of sodium hydroxide. And then I know from the equation that 1 mole of sodium hydroxide reacts with 1 mole of ascorbic acid to get 0.0088 moles of ascorbic acid. And that was in 0.01 liters, 10 milliliters. Changed it into liters, and I got 0.088 moles per liter of ascorbic acid. Once we have that, the next part, part 2, says from the titration curve, determine the approximate pKa of ascorbic acid. And they don't tell us to justify it, so my answer is just going to be pretty short. I got an approximate pKa of 4.1. Yours might have been slightly different based on how you estimated, but I went to the halfway point of the titration, halfway to the equivalence point. This right here is the half equivalence point, and we've learned this year that the pKa, or the pH at that moment, is equal to the pKa of the ascorbic acid. So I estimated just over 4 at around 4.1. And then the third part of this question, part 3, what is the value of the ratio of ascorbic acid, or ascorbate ion to ascorbic acid when the pH of the solution is 4.7? So I'm thinking to myself, let's get an idea first of all. 4.7 is when we're right about here, so 4.7. So I'm right about there-ish, okay? And so I know I'm past the halfway point of the titration. So I'm going to guess there's more ascorbate ion than there is ascorbic acid. So the ratio should be greater than 1. And the way I actually calculate that is by going back to good old Henderson-Hasselbalch, where the pH equals the pKa plus the log of the ratio of the base over the acid. So the pH that we're targeting is 4.7, pKa is 4.1, and the log of x. I don't need one or the other, I just need the ratio of them. And when I solved this out, I ended up getting 3.98 as my ratio. Now that we've conquered the land of buffers and titrations, we move on to the land of kinetics. And so we change our focus here. Dihydroascorbic acid, DHASC, can be produced by reacting ascorbic acid with the triiodide ion, which is I3-. And we got the reaction here. The student runs 3 trials of the reaction with 3 different concentrations of ascorbic acid and triiodide, producing the following data. So we have some lab data, and we have to use the method of initial rates to figure out the rate law and talk about it. So the rate law for the reaction is, actually they give it to us. Explain how the data in the table support the conclusion that the reaction is first order with respect to HASC. Okay, so we are told we have to basically justify it. And I actually justified it with both. Okay, and I said that from trial 1 to trial 2, the I3- is halved, and the rate is also halved. So that shows that it is first order with respect to I3. That wasn't in the prompt, but I went ahead and did it anyway, just for the audience out here. From trial 1 to trial 3, the ascorbic acid is doubled, and the rate also doubled, approximately. This direct relation shows that the reaction is first order with respect to ascorbic acid. And so I did it in words in a sentence version. You may have done a calculation to show that as one doubled, the other one doubled as well. Either way should be appropriate for credit on that type of thing. Okay, next. Part 2 of that was to calculate the value of the rate constant for this reaction. Include units in your answer. So I will tell you, you can pick any of the 3 trials. You should get credit for any of the 3 trials because you should get answers similar to each other in each case. I went ahead and used trial 1. And trial 1, I wrote the rate law. And then to figure out the rate constant, you simply put in the rate that is shown and the 2 concentrations of the 2 reactants. So I got the rate here and 2 concentrations. and I just divided them both to the other side, and I got 4.55 times 10 to the minus fourth. And then the unit here is liters per mole second. So it's a second order overall reaction, and so if it was first order just with one of them, it would just be 1 over the time. But in this case, it's second order overall, so we get liters over moles seconds. And finally, the last question, part D of this FRQ, gets into intermolecular forces. So in case we hadn't had enough yet. The triiodide ion I3 minus is significantly more soluble in water than elemental iodine is. Identify an intermolecular force between I3 minus and water that is not present between I2 and water, which could explain the difference in solubility. Lewis diagrams are provided, which is kind of nice. We don't have to do those. So we've got this and this. Now, if I'm looking at these two Lewis structures, I'm thinking, well, I know elemental iodine is nonpolar. I know that water is polar. Like dissolves like, that's our phrase. And that means that water is probably not going to dissolve the nonpolar iodine. Now, at first glance, you might look at this one and say, well, hey, I paid attention. I know my shapes. And if you have 2 bonds and 3 lone pairs, that's linear also. And so shouldn't this be nonpolar as well? Well, based on the shape, yes. But the idea here is that this actually has a charge. And elemental iodine doesn't. So in 2D, this is what I wrote. The triiodide ion has a -1 charge. So it will participate in ion-dipole interactions with water, while the nonpolar iodine molecule with only London dispersion forces will not. Since ion dipole forces are stronger than London dispersion forces, I3- is more soluble in water. Because it has a charge somewhere on this molecule, it can attract the positive side of the water molecules, and they will stick together with a little bit stronger force than maybe just a London dispersion force. All right, so that's what I came up with. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you had success on your AP Chemistry exam 2025. If you have questions, you can send them to me in the comments. In the meantime, happy studying and have a great day.